your name on it. Just put your name on it. That's all I say. Be a man or a woman. Put your name on it.
Whatever it was just fucking money out of nowhere.
All right, we'll roll. I don't want you to get caught saying something you don't want to say.
There's no such thing as that.
Hey, Donnell's in the house.
We're handling it in post. We're handling it in post.
Give me a hootie hoo. Hootie hoo.
Does anybody do hootie hoo?
I do.
No, nobody do that. It's certain things that really let people know how old you are right off the bat.
Yeah, I just know it from an Outkast song.
Yeah, hootie hoo is saying I'm 50 plus. And like, even when I perform, this is when I know a guy's trying to tell people how old I am. They like this. You seen them on Def Comedy Jam, right? I'm like, just tell them that this 50-year-old comic is about to come on stage. You don't got to do that
Def
reference.
Comedy Jam show?
When I did it, it was J. Anthony Brown.
Hamburger
wasn't on there. Some more was on it. This guy Wyatt the Riot or something, and somebody else. And the crazy thing was, I really wasn't supposed to be on the show, because when you did Def Jam, 4 people taped, right, and only 3 made it. 1 person cut. It doesn't matter, even if you had a good set. If everybody else smoked before that, and for whatever reason your set got cut, you got cut. And I was very young. I think I made Def Comedy Jam. I was at 6 months, and I had an okay set. But back then, you had to have an explosive set. You had to have a catchphrase or something for to connect with. Michael Blackson was, and I thank him to this day. Michael Blackson was on the show, and Michael Blackson completely destroyed this set. I think he went 3rd, but they were going to make him close the show out, right? And he had got a standing ovation and everything. And then he said, everybody say, I'm African, but you know how I'm African? Because of my dick, right? And then he goes inside his pants, right? And he pulls out this like 24-inch prosthetic fucking black penis, right? And wave it at the audience. And the audience goes crazy.
Yeah, they go
up. But Def Jam was coming under so much pressure, like, okay, you guys are going hard, but that was like literally and figuratively going hard. So his
that's
set,
when they cut?
They and even though he had the best set, they cut him, which made me be able to make the show.
But I've seen him on, so he must have come back and done it again then, because I remember him killing on Def
No,
Jam.
I don't think he did it anymore after that. Yeah, and it was that could have been a blow for anybody, because at that time you could blow up on Def Jam if you just have one phrase that people could remember. You were selling out everywhere, and he missed that moment. But to him,
my dick.
Was his big black dick, and it was a big one. You know what I'm saying? It was
I feel like I saw it. But maybe I was there.
I don't know.
I went there with Charlie Barnett.
Charlie Barnett ripped it too.
And I always wanted to do like Def Jam or Showtime at the Apollo and get booed off without ever speaking. Just go out and look nervous when they start booing. Just put my hands up, like, give me a chance.
I don't think at the Apollo, you would have got booed for being nervous. You would have got booed for being white.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, tomato, however you want it, but it would have happened.
Come on, and I would just say, come on, guys, give me a chance.
And I had an Apollo experience where it was the Apollo Comedy Hour. They was trying to make these shows off of Apollo, and when you do Apollo, they pretty much use the same audience. They tape like 3 or 4 shows. And comic is the last person they care about on the show. So I kept getting bumped. And then it was like the last show, the audience been there for like 3 or 4 shows. I'm about to go on. And then they said, ladies and gentlemen, we got a special guest, Biz Markie, right?
Oh, shit.
Biz Mark go up there, and he's like, he goes up there, catches a standing O, and I'm a comic of 7 months looking like this is not going to be the thing that propels my career, right? So I went up there intentionally, started cursing. I was like, I didn't have enough experience to know how to deal with that situation. People, once Biz got off the stage, people was walking out and everything. And the worst thing I did was I invited all of my ex-military buddies and everything. I had like about 15 or 20 people. And everybody looked at me at the end of that like, well, don't quit your day job. And the crazy thing is,
your day job?
I didn't have a day job. So I didn't have a day job to quit. So I'm like, well, you don't have to worry about me quitting that job. But I've never had a day job.
Did you ever do that show that was on after the Apollo? Was it Uptown Comedy where they did the dozens at the end when Tracy was real fat and he had the propeller hat?
I never did that, but I remember that was an era when like urban comedy was popping back then. It was a small room. That's I think it was the Brown Brothers. They did that back in the day, but no, I never did that show.
And the dozens was always won by this white guy, Rob Magnotti.
Oh yeah, he was.
But I saw Ronaldo Ray The hardest I've ever laughed, I think, watching television, they were doing the dozens, and Ronaldo Ray's like older than us.
Right.
And he didn't know, like, you just have 1,000 of them in your head already.
Right.
So he was making his up on the spot.
Ronaldo?
Yeah. So Rob Magnotti said something to him, like, your mother so whatever, blah, 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 blah. And everybody laughs, and Ronaldo Ray goes, okay. You know,
it just went on.
I went to visit your mother.
But it's a skill.
He goes, I went to visit your sister because the bitch owed me some money. And but it took like 3 minutes. And I'm gonna do the quick version.
I'm gonna tell you somebody that surprised me with that. It was George Wallace, and it was years ago. I just started comedy. I was at the Comedy Connection in Greenbelt, and first off, what was impressive to me about George Wallace, I never seen a comedian go to a comedy club and say, I want 100% of the door. You know what I mean? It's like you just eat off of pizza and soda, right? I was like, that's some gangster stuff. And you got to really be confident to be able to say, I'm going to get the whole door. And George Wallace, he kind of baited the guy. It was a young guy. He said something about your mama, right? But he didn't know that George Wallace is literally the king of mama jokes. George Wallace did 20 minutes of mama jokes where this kid felt like George Wallace should have adopted him after that. It was just destruction, man. Just pop, 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 and just crushed him.
The Ronaldo Ray one was, I went to visit your sister because the bitch owed me some money. And as I made my way up the gravel driveway, your mother came out from under the porch and bit me on my leg. We laughed so hard, my dad woke up. You know, your dad comes downstairs, you got friends over, he's in his underwear. It's like, oh.
What's going on?
Yeah, he's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, Ronaldo was another one of those legends that really never really got, I guess, on the chilling circuit, he got the props, but I don't think it ever like kind of resonated with mainstream too much.
I saw him at Ralph's once in the produce section, and I was completely starstruck, and I had to go up to him and say, like, bro,
Right.
Tell him that joke back. He goes, yeah.
Do you ever feel like that? I mean, especially because I know you've had experience with people coming up to you like that. I know, did it make you feel weird to approach them? Because, you know, sometimes people can...
No, I'm the opposite. They say never meet your heroes. I always, when I see them, I go right to them.
Right.
But that's how we got like Flavor Flav on the podcast. I saw him at Billie Jean King's Star Walk of Fame ceremony. And I was like, my man.
I did that once. It was in Miami. And it was, I think it's probably anybody that's ever watched basketball, Michael Jordan, right? So I was at this club with this girl, and I was working on trying to find a look that looked different. I created this character in my mind called Brother Knowledge, right? And he wore like a button-up shirt with a sweater on top of it with a hat. He had glasses that with no frames in it, and he's supposed to look like that cool guy, right? So I'm with this girl I'm no longer with, and we're hanging out or whatever. And all of a sudden, I could just feel this energy coming toward me, like an entourage coming, right? I couldn't see what it was. I was like, what the fuck is the fire drill or whatever? So this entourage comes up, and it was Michael Jordan, right? And I'm telling you, the look that I had, it felt like I was disguising myself. And it was at the time when Chappelle's show was hot. Like celebrities, basketball players, they just was connected with the show. So I knew I was like, oh, I'm gonna hit him with a little rich bitch or something like that. He went, oh my God, he walked past, he was coming past me. I ripped my glasses off. I took my hat off. I unbuttoned my tie. I was like, Mike, you might not know me, but I was on Chappelle's show, blah, 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 blah. And he just kept on walking, right? And I felt so stupid. And the girl I was with, she was like, damn, you was on his dick, right? She said, you was on his dick. She said, you damn near got naked for Jordan. I said, bitch, ain't nobody getting naked for Jordan. It's hot as shit in this club. You don't feel that heat coming? She was like,
play it off.
I tried to play it off, right? I felt so embarrassed, but at the same time, I was like, Michael Jordan's still in the building. So she was like, go over there and talk. Go over there and try to meet him if you want. I was like, I don't give a fuck about no Michael Jordan. The minute she turned her head, vroom, I'm on his dick again, right? He's in his elevated VIP section. He's with body people, whatever, right? And I went to the guy. And the guy was next close to him. I said, yo, that's the only thing I had was like, because people usually connect with that. I was like, I was on Chappelle's show, I played so-and-so. I just want to see if I can get a picture, just say what's up to Jordan. He said, you tell him yourself, right? And I went over and I saw him. I was like, yo, Jordan, can I picture? And in my mind, it felt like he had a cigar and he plucked the ash right on top of my head, right? No. And then he was like, I don't do pictures. And I did what any black man would do when this hero doesn't acknowledge him. I went straight to Twitter and started hating on him, right? That love went to hate real quick. I started a hashtag. The hashtag was the hashtag was hating on Jordan, right? And then I said, hating on Jordan. I was like, yeah, I just saw Jordan in the nightclub with some old ass Jordans. He can't even wear no new shit, right? Then I said, hating on Jordan, he can play basketball, but he can't play no fucking baseball. Get a hit, motherfucker. And I tried to go viral, but it didn't happen. But it was the most embarrassing situation of my
I had
life.
a completely opposite experience with Mike.
Now you want to rub it in, right?
No, it's just so funny.
Yo, yeah, he liked the white man more than the black man.
Hey, it's
What
good.
was-
Republicans buy sneakers too.
Can I
That's what he
just tell you
said.
something, Donnell? It's good being white.
Yeah, I know you guys
It's
has
good being
advantages. I know it has advantages.
So my wife gets invited to his 60th birthday party.
Of his.
Yeah. So we fly there and we're at his birthday party and we're like, I'm just sitting there at I'm across from Magic and Mike comes up and she goes, "This is my husband, Jay." And he just goes, "Hey." And he puts me in a headlock.
Right.
And he goes, "You're in the family now, motherfucker." And he like gives me like a noogie, like a little kid.
You know you're creating trauma by telling me that story, right?
Hey, man.
You know what I would have done to be under Michael Jordan's armpit and just, you're in the family. Fuck Michael Jordan. Let me start this hashtag again. Hating on Jordan, yeah, you fuck with the white man, but you don't fuck with the black man. Okay.
You went to T.C. Williams High School?
Yes.
Is that named after T.C. from Magnum P.I.?
No. I don't know what it's named after.
It's named after Thank you, Joe. Thomas Chambliss Williams, a guy that was for segregation. So they renamed your high school in 2021, different name.
Every one of the schools, every school in Virginia, and when we were younger, we didn't really understand that. We just saw, I used to go to Robert E. Lee Rec Center. You know what I'm saying? And we had the best time. We got free lunch and everything. We didn't get free there, but we got free lunch there, right? But when I was young, we didn't really connect with the history of the school we was going to. So what you're saying, I could agree with you 100%. We just knew we were going to TC, and it was a cool school.
You know, this has nothing to do with anything, but I went to get my car washed the other day, and the car wash was closed because there's no illegals
I know.
to work it.
You can't even, yo.
So now I'm totally anti-ice. I was like, I'm staying out of it. They should, if they're not here legally, they got to go. And then I got this dirty ass car. I'm like, fucking ice got to go.
Home Depot has turned to Home Depot. You can't
Home
go there.
Depot.
But I'm telling you, here's the hustle. This is what you do. If you have like some Latino or whatever, illegals, whatever, right, and they do contract work for you, what you do is tell them you want a new concrete driveway, you want everything, right? And right before it's time for payday,
Stupid ass.
call ICE. Don't take them, no! And then you're good, man. You got a driveway for free, man.
What did your parents do for a living?
That's not interesting, but totally opposite. My father was a drug kingpin in DC, and my mother was a social worker. And the funny thing, they had the same clients. It was like my mother tried to get him out of the fucking depression and all this shit. My father was like, "Here, I got something that can soothe that pain." So they was totally opposite. But
Dad was the man, huh?
yeah, he was.
Who were you closer to growing up?
Thanks to incarceration, it was my mother.
Oh,
Because my father spent a lot of time. He was in and out of prison.
same.
Yeah, and it was like the crazy thing about it was him being a drug kingpin in my neighborhood. I know people could look at it like, "Oh, that's so fucked up," but in my neighborhood, I was so proud that he wasn't just the guy on the street corner selling nickel bags. You know, like, yeah, your father selling nickel bags. My father got weight, so it was kind of proud that he had reached a level of success.
Do you ever do stand up in prison?
Have I? No, I've never done it. No.
It's amazing. It's the most rewarding thing. I go for like AA. I'll do like a panel at a prison, but I wind up when I do my share, I just kind of do stand up about going to rehab and shit.
Right.
And it's like they ain't coming home and they're at a meeting.
But they did well. It's simple to say that they're pretty much the most engaged audience you gonna have.
Yeah, but they could, yeah.
They can't walk out. What else are they gonna do, man? Everything is
you.
activity.
They could treat me like Michael Jordan treated you.
I don't want
They get ash on my head.
No, this is called bullying.
No, I'm not. I don't want to bully.
Yeah.
When this podcast started,
No, because you understand the pain that I suffer but it's your business to keep bringing it up. So this is what they call bullying, Jay.
What was your favorite Christmas present you ever got?
First off, my parents were Muslim.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Well, that is not what you want to hear Christmas Day. Christmas was always always shitty for me. And I think for any Muslims out there, if you're gonna be a Muslim, at least move into a Muslim community. You don't want to be a Muslim in a Christian community and they celebrate every holiday, and you got to skip that shit. But
did you celebrate any holidays?
No, I mean Muslims.
Halloween?
No, none of that. And I think it was my mother's doing, because every time we got close to a holiday, my mother would change our religion. And I was like, damn, how many ways you gonna figure out to save money? You know, right before my birthday, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. At one point I was like, fuck this, I need a God that likes bacon and giving out gifts.
Right.
These other gods wasn't kicking it for me.
But you got a son. Did you lean more heavily into Christmas because you didn't get to have it for your son?
I do everything in his life. I lean more into it because I didn't have those experiences coming up yet. But for sure, like we celebrate. My son could make up a holiday. And I'm like, you get a new bike for that. Daddy, it's cotton candy day. I'm like, here's a remote control car. You know, I'm going to.
What is Kwanzaa? That came up like 92, right around like Mr. Knowledge. What was your guy's name?
Brother Knowledge.
Right around Brother Knowledge was popping. It was like all of a sudden we got inundated with
Kwanzaa. It's a black holiday.
Really?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's only been in existence for like 20, 25 years. Okay. And it was another holiday just to say, and fuck the white man.
Who's your closest Asian friend?
My closest Asian friend, and I hate to say this, it might probably be Bobby.
That seems to be everybody's answer.
Every comic.
Yeah, he's the only one. He's the token Asian friend. And that's not saying a lot because we argue and fight all the time.
Chappelle's wife is Asian, right?
Yeah, but she's not my friend. That's his wife.
Well,
yeah.
You ever seen a ghost?
I've never seen a ghost.
Would you want to?
No.
No?
No. Black folks don't do ghosts. We don't do magic. We don't do surprises. We don't do none of that shit. So
I love watching David Blaine when he does street magic in a black neighborhood and they just run down the street screaming.
Yo, David Blaine is out of control. He tried to hit on a girl I was talking to once before.
Really?
Yeah, I was nervous as shit.
I'll make my cock disappear.
No, I think he would make me disappear.
Yeah.
But I was there with Chappelle in Toronto. Drake had a party. And David Blaine was there doing all this magic and shit. And this motherfucker made a frog. He swallowed the frog, right? And then fucking regurgitated it right in front of us. And in the background, it's a clip where all you hear me is saying, "Oh shit, son! He swallowed that frog, son!" Black people don't fuck with no magic, man. Great guy, but you can't hang out with him too much. He just got like weird. You don't know what he's gonna do.
Do you think Stevie Wonder is really blind?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he's blind, but he's in tune to his senses so much that he's probably more connected with everything else, vision, than we are.
How did you meet Dave?
It was our reputations that really brought us together. Dave is younger than me. I'm older than him, but he's like 4 years senior to me in comedy. So when I first started doing comedy in DC, I was on fire. Like I was lighting DC up. And then one thing about being in DC, you knew the people that was either really aggressively trying to make it because they would leave. You know, like everybody tell you back in the day, it wasn't no social media, it wasn't no podcast. The only way you was going to make it in the business, you had to either go to New York or LA. It was no Austin, it was no Nashville, it was nothing. It was that. So I would ask, I'm like, man, who left DC? Who's popping, right? And everybody would be like, man, Dave Chappelle, young kid, he's on fire. And I was very competitive. I wanted to know why was everybody on his dick so much? So I was like, so what is it about him? And he's like, well, he's young, he's smart, he doesn't do like, dick pussy jokes, whatever. And I was like, so what? Right? It was like, but he's got it popping now. And I was like, man, fuck Dave Chappelle. Right? Not in a bad way, because I'm like this.
Hashtag hating Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. I was on my Michael Jordan shit there, right? And I was like, man,
fuck Dave and Mike.
I was like, man, fuck Dave Chappelle, right? Because I was like this. I want to know what those guys did, because I want to either follow in their footsteps or take the same route. And it's interesting because that's what I said. And then on my 50th birthday, Dave came to my show, and Chris Spencer, he said, how did you and Donnell meet? And Dave said, I'll tell you how we met. I was a young comic. He said, I was in New York and I had shit popping. I was the shit, right? And he said, I would go home for holidays and I would ask the same question. I was like, who's popping in DC? And Dave said there would always be the usual suspects. It would be Andy Evans. It would be Fat Doctor. It would be these guys everybody knew. And then the club owner would say, but there's this one young guy named Donnell Rawlings. And Dave's response to that was, man, fuck Donnell Rawlings, right? Because it was the same thing. Like, he didn't want anybody to, not in a very nice way, he didn't want anybody to be in the same sentence or in the competition with it. And that's how we knew of each other. And then when I used to go to New York, when I first moved to New York, our paths would cross at the Cellar and at the Boston Comedy Club. And it wasn't like we hung out or anything. It was just like, oh, that's the young guy from D.C. that I'm hearing so much about. And I was like, oh, that's the guy Dave Chappelle that I'm hearing so much about. And that's
Tony Woods from D.C.?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's older than both of you, right?
Yeah, and Tony Woods has been a mentor to so many people for over the years.
Hey, shorty.
Yeah, Tony was the one, because the toughest thing for me to do when I moved from D.C. to New York, when I was in D.C., I didn't work the mainstream rooms. I didn't work the white clubs. It was all underground, chitlin circuit, the black shows, the cabarets and stuff like that. So when I moved to New York, I started to get opportunities to work at the Boston Comedy Club, and I wasn't used to having an all-white audience or anything other than a black audience. So I used to always, you fall back on like, oh, if it was a black audience, I always was referenced that. And Tony Woods came up to me one day, he said, Donnell, they know you're black. He said, first clue was coming to the stage, Donnell, right? He was like, they know you're black, so you don't have to keep talking about that. I had to get that out of my head, that there was a difference in the audience. And that's when I started to kind of, figure out that there's no difference. And me personally, if you have material that can relate to one audience, then you're not at your best.
Don't you think that's what holds? There'll never be that zeitgeist that you and I were a part of again.
There'll never be what?
It's like that beginning, like where it was me, you, Chappelle, Dane Cook, Ian Edwards, Patrice, Jim Norton, Colin Quinn. Like, we were at the same club every night, 7 nights a week, just bagging on each other, talking shit. Yeah. Like, I don't think that'll ever happen again, because like you said, there's no incentive now to make every audience laugh. Like, I can do this, I can do my hipster room because I'm a hipster comic,
but another reason,
my gay and lesbian room.
Another reason to add to that, the reason why it'll never be that vibe again, because comics aren't being discovered in comedy clubs. They're not going to a comedy club to be funny first. They're going to the internet. If you look at like the most successful YouTubers or whatever, their definition of comedian is on their platform. So they're coming with an audience. They're already making money. They have no incentive to go in the club to wait around for that time when somebody misses their spot. They're not connecting. They're not social with each other. So that era is, to your point, that is gone forever.
But what's missing then is struggle. Like, they don't know what it's like to struggle, to wait around all night at the Catch Rising Star and like, sorry, everybody showed up, go home.
But then when we have this conversation, the generational gap explains it all. We have this conversation. First they're gonna call you as an old head. That's how it was. And I used to be like, oh man, fuck these YouTube guys or whatever. But I'm like, I don't really care anymore. I wish some of them would care about what it takes to be a great comic, what it takes to be good at this. But the reason why it's hard to talk to them, because when we first started doing this, if you wanted money, pussy, drugs, or whatever, you had, whatever it was, you had to be good at it to get all the things you want. Now you don't have to be good at it. You talk to a guy that's like 3 million followers or whatever, right? And you tell him, you need to work on do you know what a transition is? You know what a tag is? And you tell them that, they're like, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm monetizing. So all the things we used to have to work hard to do to get, they getting it off the bat. So they don't have no sense of, you get one or two of them that really care about being good at it. But other than that, it's like this. If it's not fixed, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I can just keep it going like this.
How old's your son?
He's 9.
So my son's 14 and he's lazy and all his friends are lazy. And I'm like, but I can't even blame them because they come up.
Okay, question. What is your definition of lazy?
not wanting to put in effort, but wanting the result.
Okay, that's lazy. I thought you meant they only have like programming games and all this type of shit.
Not drying your feet when you come out of the shower. Every day I go, dry your feet. Like there's footprints through my house.
Right.
You know, and so it's like but like one kid's parent has an Uber account, so they all get a ride somewhere.
Right.
One kid will get like a part-time job at like a PetSmart, so every once in a while he'll buy him like a burger.
Right.
Like it's not even their fault that they're lazy. Like it's just how it went.
But how do
you keep your son from being lazy?
My son's lazy.
Wow. Okay,
no, not
good.
lazy, but I just like it's a certain life that he's getting accustomed to, you know. But with that, I always explain to him why this is what it is. The reason why, if you fly, not all the time, if you fly first class, it's not first class because you deserve first class. It's because Daddy's been doing this for 30 years. Daddy puts the work in. He works his ass off to try to give us the best situation. So I just try to tell him what real life is. That's the only thing I can do.
Yeah, my son's never flown coach a day in his life.
No. My son, yeah, he has.
If he flies by himself, I'll put him in coach.
Yeah, but
I'm not flying coach.
It'll be like, but I also like, I want him to have the coach experience. You know, I don't want him to just assume this is how it's supposed to be. And I want him to know that hard work is the reason why you're there. And also let him know first class is nice and everything, but on the human side of it, the people back here aren't any, of my opinion, aren't any different from the people in first class. And sometimes, you know, I'm like, yo, we'll be back in 13F or 14D or whatever. Then sometimes we be in 2B and 2C. But I want him to feel comfortable in either class.
Are you still married to his mom?
Never was married.
Oh, you were never married?
No.
Did you guys ever go to couples counseling?
I wasn't doing that shit. I had the baby. I'm good. Mission accomplished. I was an old head with no kids. I don't give a fuck. We don't got to get along. Give me my son. Nah. No, it was never. And in that situation, it was a relationship that was very, very new. A lot of things happened really, really fast. And then when I look at it, you know, you could beat yourself up. Why didn't this work and everything? But, you know, before she got pregnant, we were only dating for like a year. And that's not like we comedians, we got like, you know, I got like dog years or whatever. Comedians, like we were dating for a year. She was dating a road comic for a year, which means she was dating a guy for 4 or 5 months, to be quite honest, with the traveling and everything. So part of it that we really didn't get to know each other like that, how it would be living together, whatever. But why we
Did she ever get married?
No, she never. She's single now. I'm pretty sure she wants that. She's like younger than I am, so there's a chance that she could get a husband.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm good. I got my boy. I'm happy as shit.
So you never did couples counseling? You never did? You ever go to therapy yourself?
I had one phone call with a therapist, and I need another call.
Was it a particular thing or just in general?
No, it was a
Michael Jordan incident.
No, it wasn't a Michael Jordan.
Very
no,
good.
to be quite honest, it wasn't. I mean, I guess most black people think they never need therapy, but for some reason,
why is that? Why do black people think that?
I don't know. We just think that.
You got one of my favorite jokes. I don't even know if you remember it. I was trying to lean into it when you said, "Hey Donnell, you depressed? Huh? No, I'm not depressed. I'm just a little fucked up.
I'm just fucked up right now. That's right.
It's one of the greatest jokes I've ever heard.
No, black people don't get depressed. I'm fucked up. I'll be all right. Because we so used to having to be tough in every situation. We so used to blaming everything, every situation. It's like, just you don't need a therapist. You just need to get a blowjob. You know what I'm saying? I tried that therapy. That didn't really work.
What'd you go to therapy for? What was the
thing is, I never wanted to go to therapy, but because it started getting kind of cool in the black community, I wanted to be down. Like Charlamagne and God from the Breakfast Club, he's always talking about mental health. And again, black people, we don't really focus on that much. And then I started listening to people around me. They was like, you know what, maybe it'll be a good idea. Maybe it'll be a good idea. And I talked to one of my friends, I think it was Tiffany Haddish. I was talking to her about it. And she was like, you know what, Donnell, you should try it. So she referred me to her guy that's worked with some big names or whatever. And I was like, well, the only reason I'm calling you because my friend said I need to call you.
Great.
I said, I don't even know what the fuck to talk to you about other than my baby mother gets on my fucking nerves. And I think that if any area that I think that I would have a conversation with somebody, it would be in that area. And it was so funny because for the most part, therapy is one thing. I think you pair somebody that doesn't have a personal relationship with you, a connection, so you respect what they say more than anything. Because usually anything a therapist tell you, somebody has said it to you before, whether it's your aunt, your uncle, but you want to hear from somebody with the name. And so we were talking about kind of like my relationship with the mother of my child, right? And he was like, what do you think one of your issues is? I was like, well, sometimes, I get frustrated, and then when I get frustrated, we just start going off. He said, Donnell, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He said, if you're on stage and you realize that the audience isn't that engaged with you, when the audience isn't that engaged with you, what do you do? I said, first off, that doesn't happen too often, right? I said, but when it happens, I take a step back, I take a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, the game plan that I had is not working. So now I got to call an audible. The things that I thought that usually I would get a good hit with is not working, but I can't let the opponent feel like I'm rattled. I got to take a time out, got to hug them or whatever, and I just got to relax and start over and build back up to the point where it's a better situation. And he said, why don't you do that with her? And I was like,
you didn't realize that as you were saying it? Like, oh, I see where he's going.
No. This is what I suggested for this is what I told him I would do in a situation.
No, I'm aware.
Oh, no, I didn't know, but that's why I guess he's a nice
usually
therapist.
When I'm in therapy and I start talking, I'm like, all right.
But then when I said it, I was like, damn, that makes sense, right? And then, I had an incident, and I tried it, and the shit still didn't work. That's why I never called her back. I was like, you don't know what the fuck you talk about. She's a different breed. But I think that more...
She's a bad girl. You met her on a show...
Yeah. But I didn't meet her.
Bad Girls.
It was the Bad Girls Club, yeah. And then here's the thing. I'm this is the reason why I don't go to like some people's favorite strip clubs and shit, right? Because I'm the guy that's gonna be in the club like, so did you ever go to acting school? I'm like the guy, we get you a voice coach. You know what I'm saying? I'm the guy that's going to try to change your life.
You could really dance.
Make your own like pussy Terminator.
Exactly.
Build your own monster.
And with that, I thought with this situation, I don't knock anything about our relationship or talk bad of her, but a part of me was like this, you know what? I always thought this. Sometimes women at a certain age, whatever, it's two things they could deal with: temptation or salvation, right? And depending on who comes in their life, it would dictate which you're going to teeter to, the temptation or the salvation part of it. And that was part of my relationship with her. You know what I'm saying? Was I excited that I was dating somebody that was on the Bad Girls Club? But did I think that somebody was on the Bad Girls Club that if they with the right person, whatever, they could just dismiss that and try to be a different person? That was my thoughts, and that's what, and I do believe that our relationship in regard to her being a woman helped out with her having a son, and it helped me out with me having a son. So that's how I look at it.
They say women are either, when they get married or have a kid with somebody, they're either running towards their father or running away from their father. So which guy do you think you represented to her?
I think probably more likely away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Her biological father, I don't think she had a great relationship with him. So it could have been a situation. And me being older than her, a person like this, you know what? This person kind of understands, and they'll listen to me. Or at the same time, she could have been pulling a hokey doke on me at the beginning of it. Like, yeah, let me get this over.
Do you like during sex when girls call you daddy?
No.
Oh.
Zaddy.
Fuck Zaddy.
No, Zaddy.
Call me daddy. Put your thumb in your mouth. Let's get to work.
Nah. That's why you have more therapy sessions than I have. Nah.
That's my whole jam, dude.
It's just in this climate right now, I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Did OJ do it?
Fuck no, he didn't do it.
You don't believe that?
No. There's no way.
Look at your face. You don't believe that.
At the end of the day.
You're just trying to stay cool.
You know why he didn't do it?
Okay, why?
What did the verdict say? And as a white man, you guys stick with the verdict every time. In any other situation, when they say guilty, it's guilty. Why is there any difference with OJ? Guess what? The law said OJ was innocent.
I actually think his son did it.
Yeah?
That's the theory that's out there.
But damn, that's a hard secret to keep for a very, very long time.
Rate these celebrities in order of blackness. James Brown, Richard.
What's the number? Is scale or what?
Just give me a 1, 2, 3. Blackest to James Brown.
That's it. You don't have to say anybody
Jim
else.
Brown, Richard Pryor.
The blackest?
Yeah.
It's fucking James Brown 100%. Nobody out black in complexion, in culture, in everything. Nobody out. And you say Jim Brown, you're not. Jim Brown was not Jim Brown. Jim Brown is black, but James Brown killed it.
Jim Brown quit his job. What's more black than that? He said,
Yeah,
I don't want to work for the NFL anymore.
No, that is black because most black guys, they don't quit jobs. They get fired so they can get unemployment. So, yeah, you got it right. But James Brown was the blackest. I mean, even with his music and everything, even Jim Brown's actions, he did a lot for black, but just James Brown, just the blackest.
When you started...
He got a song. I'm black and I'm proud. Jim Brown probably would have beat him if Jim Brown's had a song. But he didn't have a song. Touchdowns don't mean shit to black people.
Thank you so much for playing along with that question. When you met Charlie Murphy, was it on the Chappelle show?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Give me.
Charlie was just
beauty.
Just a cool motherfucker. He was just somebody that you just wanted to hang around. And I had the opportunity to be around Charlie and his family, around Charlie's family with Eddie, including everything. And you could tell the dynamic of their family that when they were growing up, Charlie was the funniest one. You knew that. You know that just the way, the level of respect they showed him. But Charlie just had different directions of where he wanted his life to go. And you could tell that Eddie looked up at Charlie like, oh my God, but Eddie was the performer. Eddie was the entertainer. Charlie was the street guy. He was funny as shit. Nobody gonna tell a story that's gonna have you as engaged as Charlie for so long. And at the end of it, you like this, is this live or Memorex? Or if it's the truth? Like when people ask me those true Hollywood stories, were they true? We could have fucking did a whole season of just those stories. But when you talk about a stand-up guy, a man's man, he was every bit of that.
Eddie told me like when he was growing up, Charlie just, every once in a while, Charlie would come home and he was like, from now on, you got to call me Omar.
Oh, that was his street name?
Yeah, he was like, I'm Omar. Like, you can't call me Charlie, you call me Omar. And he would walk around with a do-rag like Omar.
Yeah, and he would, I'm
Charlie was no joke.
Charlie, when we did Chappelle's show, the Lost episodes, this is when nobody knew if Dave was going to come back. Comedy Central had an archive of material they had already shot. And it was a very, very tough decision to decide if me personally, if I wanted to still be a part of it at all without Dave.
Yeah.
But it was never an intention. And some people talk shit about it. It was never intention to me like, all right, and this is going to be the new show, And
you couldn't get a hold of Dave in this time?
I hadn't talked to him. And this is a point I made on a couple of other platforms, I hadn't talked to Dave, whatever. Nobody really knew the extent of why he left or anything. It wasn't like nobody knew if like he thought the network was treating him unfair or whatever. It was just like he was gone. And at the time that show was one of the hottest shows out, and every second you could have on it, it could help you with your ticket sales. And even when I talked to Neil, I was like, I don't want to continue the show. I was like, it's going to be very important that even if we do this, we're not trying to come off. And the new host, that's why the first thing that when me and Charlie came out, when Charlie said, you know what, I really don't want to be here. And I said, I'll speak for yourself. I need all the camera time I can get, motherfucker. Bring that camera in. It's like, yeah. It was a tough situation to be around. And like, I even talked to Dave. He said something to me a while ago. He said, I felt some kind of way. I was like, you know what, Dave, you could have called me. You could have called. You could have been like, yo, this is why I don't want to be here. I have an issue with that. And there's no way I would have considered even being part of that. And then going back to the Charlie situation, so we was reading the teleprompter, right? And Charlie wears glasses, right? And it was me and Charlie standing beside each other. And he kept on, back to one, start over. And Charlie was getting frustrated, and the audience was getting frustrated, and they was getting ready to start laughing at him. I could tell, right? And I had to try to figure out something. I was like, yo, put your glasses on, motherfucker, right? And the crowd went crazy. They started laughing, and Charlie was like, right? And then as soon as they said break, we're in the back. In the back, Charlie's like, let me tell you one thing, motherfucker. If you ever fucking embarrass me like this, fuck this show, I'll fuck you up. And Neil, and I'm like this, we still gotta finish the show. Neil Brennan's over the corner like, oh man, it's about to be some black on black crime back here. But Charlie was he was
buck nasty.
Yep, he was about to buck. Charlie was one of those, he was just no nonsense, and like he just told you how it was. But very, very good guy, loyal guy, funny guy.
Rest in peace, big brother. I did a movie with Anthony Anderson and Charlie Murphy, and like when you're on a set, the prop guy will come and take out those director chairs and set them up for everybody.
Right.
So he took Charlie's chair out, and he got called to do something else. Like somebody said, "Hey, we need the champagne bottle on this." So he just put Charlie's chair down, and it was like facing a brick wall. So me and the director and this producer and like, I don't know, somebody else, we're sitting there talking, and we look over, and Charlie's in the director's chair with like his knees against, just facing this brick wall. He'd been sitting there for 20 minutes.
Like
he
a timeout?
Like he's on timeout. Like he was so stoned. He's like, well, I guess this is where they want me. And he just sat there staring at the wall.
But he was such a humble guy and such deserving of all the accolades he got later in life. And one thing, even in his death, I think the thing that I really appreciate.
How did Charlie die?
He had leukemia.
Oh.
Yeah. The thing that I appreciate about with his relationship with the Chappelle show is that when he passed away, nobody said Eddie Murphy's brother died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that show definitely gave him his name. And if it wasn't for that show, I think people would have only remembered him as Eddie Murphy's brother. So that's one thing I could say about that relationship with the Chappelle show. It really gave him his identity. Whose idea was it, like, to say, hey, we're just going to film Charlie telling stories that really happened to him? It had to be, my guess, it had to be a combination of Dave and Neil.
Yeah.
And because it was just like at lunchtime, I don't know who said, man, we should actually write this shit down, but everybody was always engaged by his stories at lunch. So whoever was the person said, let's just put some structure around this, I don't know. But I know it was birthed from those conversations that we used to have at lunchtime or anywhere Charlie was. He always had these stories. And the beauty of those stories, like, they sounded like they could be real and be full of shit at the same time.
Prince made us pancakes.
Yeah, and all that shit is goddamn true, man.
I've seen Dave in interviews say that his decision to leave was when he was on set doing a sketch and the white people were laughing, but they were laughing the wrong way.
Right.
Do you know what sketch that was?
I don't know.
I have an idea, but I think it probably could have been.
I'm not really sure, but I know one of the sketches that was kind of probably could have been triggering when it was a character in blackface.
When he's on the airplane.
On the airplane.
Ooh, wait, somebody say chicken?
But the thing about that was, and at that time, like, I don't know if Neil knew what was rumbling or whatever, but I was always a person like, okay, how can we fix it? There's no way to fix that sketch. I was like, but all right, if you want to fix it, then why don't you have somebody in blackface? If you have somebody in blackface, have somebody in yellow face, have somebody in white face, have somebody in red face, have somebody in every face.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to try to clean that up. But the difference between like me and what my thought, it's purple
I'm just
face.
laughing thinking about this guy.
Yo, just get a rainbow face. Just get
Little Chappelle
yeah.
on the fucking seat back of the chair in front of him. Woo!
That, I never really,
Starts dancing.
I never really got into what triggered or whatever, but me, like, especially that show was so big, and you the star show, you got so much power. If me personally, if I saw a couple of people laughing at the jokes in a different way, first off, I would have fired them, and I would have went back to the writer's room and said, we can't do this. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
What was the racial divide of the writer's room?
It wasn't the racial divide was a black person and a white person.
Oh, that was it.
It's just Neil and Dave.
There was no staff.
It wasn't no staff, but what they had as contributors. Like I would
You obviously must.
Yeah, what it was we would pitch ideas. Like me, like the Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. That came from a piece of my stand up, and it was my idea. We would pitch ideas. Like, okay, I got this idea, And then after that, Dave and Neil would just go bang it out and kind of tweak it the way they wanted to.
That's incredible. There was no staff on the greatest sketch comedy show of all time.
And I think that, what year? I think it was like 2004 or whatever. The Chappelle Show was nominated for an Emmy. And Neil pointed out something. They had I think it was like Conan or something. And then it was like for writers, Conan. And then you see like 30 writers. And then it was like Chappelle Show, Dave Chappelle, Neil Brennan. You know,
it's I'm sure you know this, but there's a couple white writers whose specialty is writing on black shows.
Brian Tucker,
and not Brian. Yes, and a couple of them are the most racist fucking guys I've ever known in my life.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say their names, but
no, aren't podcasts about exposing people?
No.
How many views do you want? Let us know the racist ass MAGA loving motherfuckers. No, I'm joking.
Like, holy smoke.
No,
but you know what I mean? Like, there's like certain writers that are always on In Living Color, then they're on this, then they're on that, then they're writing for BET, and you're like, this fucking guy.
Well, I guess if you think they're racist,
I know they're racist.
Okay, if you know they're racist, their hate for black people gives them the edge to understand the culture, and then they could write for black people.
That's a good point.
That's probably it. Like, I know what's going to piss them off and make them laugh, you know?
What's the most racist thing that's happened to you? Or what's a recent one? Like, I would go through my life, I have no idea what it's like to have somebody just judge me.
I don't know if I can't remember. I don't really have too many.
Not when you were like a little kid, or
nah, I don't remember.
Because Joe wanted to hear it when he masturbates.
And hear the word "daddy" in the background.
No, now that's right up my alley. So you've never seen? Oh, the Comedy Club brawl. Which improv was that?
Arlington Improv.
Okay, and you're going back there, or you just came from it again?
Oh, that was it for me. I got an option.
It's so rare.
Let's go Addison. I already know it's a club 20 minutes away that I could do. I don't have a problem with the Arlington Improv. And it was so interesting that night because I think that was...
Oh, Arlington, not Addison. Okay.
Arlington, yeah. Arlington, for the most part, if you
is it an urban room?
It's the black club. They didn't build. I'm sure they didn't want it to be that, but that's the way.
Black
you know,
people
it's a black club when the only white comic that work it is Gary Owens. That's when you know it's a black club. Is Gary Owens book it? Oh, that's the black club. But it was like I was probably 15 minutes into my set, and I hadn't really. I'm so used to like commanding the audience like right off like first.
Yeah, you
minutes.
murder hard and quick.
And I was like, it was moving kind of slow, and then I felt the room kind of like it felt restless. I heard a little chatter, and then I saw a couple people get up, and I was like, God damn, I ain't walked the audience in I don't know how long, right? I didn't know what's going on. I just didn't feel comfortable. And I saw two guys, they walked past. Then next thing you know, it was off to the goddamn races, like a straight all-out brawl. And the crazy thing about it, I came up doing like rough, like real ghetto rooms. So it didn't scare me like that. And the crazy thing, I'm thinking, how much more time do I have to do? Right? I was like, they didn't give me the light. It would be just about like this. Yo, we didn't give you the light. Stay up there.
Yeah.
So I'm on stage for 15 minutes. Then I'm trying to figure out how can I piece this out. I could have easily like ran to my green or whatever. And the first thing I did, it's not on the video that I posted. The first thing I did, I started singing Bill Withers. Sometimes in our life, and it was so funny. Then all these girls started jumping on stage like I'm gonna protect them, right? Like I'm
they
gonna
took the high ground. It's
like,
a good instinct.
They look at me like I'm gonna protect them, right? And I just did a bit about being in the military, not being patriotic, and I wasn't there to protect and serve. I just did a bit about if you would expected me to protect you in a war situation, you might as well kill yourself. And these motherfuckers, right after this bit, they jump on stage like I'm this motherfucking goddamn war hero that's gonna save them. They taking selfies. The fight lasted.
Selfies.
They was up here taking selfies. They was like, let me get one right here, Ashley. Oh. One dude grabbed his wings, was still eating his wings while the fight was going on, sat back down, ate his wings and said, I'm still not going to pay for them. But I was able to talk. I interviewed the guy who got jumped in the middle of the showroom. Ambulance came. He had a cut on his shoulder. And I was like, so what started it? Look, I got the mic like this. I was like, what started? He said, well, you always got to be aware of your surroundings and everything. And then this is when a black person did something crazy to somebody. He was like, well, I had did something to them, then they did something to me. And then I guess they knew I was going to be here, whatever. I'm like, I understand that. And I understand beef. I understand the hood stuff. But I've never known people to go settle beef in a comedy club. That's where you go.
You buy a ticket.
Yeah, that's where you go. But it was chaotic. And I did after that, because I still was worried about the club. I was like, if I leave right now, everybody's gonna run out on their check. I was like, I already knew it. I was like, if I leave now, they just like, it's just a wipe, which wouldn't have had anything to do with the money I was getting. But I said, let me try to get them a shot. And I had to really, it felt like, you got fake crowd work now. The crowd work people do now is bullshit.
Yes.
They already know the answer to that, but this was real crowd work. People sweeping glass up, people not knowing what's going to happen next. And I even thanked the audience after that. We lost half the audience, but the other half stayed, and I had to give up a lot of, if you want to say, garbage time to get them to the point. I think I did another 35 minutes, of which the last 10 minutes was when I really got to, it's like street performers. You give them a little bit, you give them a little bit, you give them a little bit, and you just try to get them to that last joke, and that's when you pass the hat around. So it worked out at the end.
I was at the Ontario Improv, and the fight broke out while I was on stage, and it was a full-on Donnybrook, and it was white, like, those white guys, they look like their name is Rusty. They got the UFC T-shirts and flip-flops. They all got trucks that are raised up with like, these colors don't run.
Exactly.
Bumper stickers. And the cops came in with tasers and flashlights. At the back of you can see right where they walk in at the back of the room in Ontario, and it's a brick wall.
Right.
And this cop's going, everybody sit down. And this little Vietnamese girls go, no. And she pushes the cop. He grabs her by the back of the hair and smashes her face against the brick wall.
Goodness.
Right in front of me.
God damn. Only thing I was concerned.
I was so hard.
I was concerned. That's some weird fetish. I thought Diddy had some fetishes. But
how come Diddy comes up? If I type in Donnell Rawlings on the computer, it says Donnell Rawlings Diddy.
Yeah, Diddy what?
Why? Why does that come up? Why are you synonymous with Diddy?
I'll tell you why. 10 years ago, and I said this on stage, 10 years ago, the Diddy has a holiday party in St. Martin or St. Bart's, one of them, every year. And it's probably the most wholesome thing he does throughout the year. Like all of his kids are there, like so many different like big dog VPs and everything. And they go to her family, they go there. And I was with Dave vacationing, and we went over to the island where he was at, and we had a fucking dope ass evening, dope ass dinner. It was no fucking freak off. I was like, I was knocking on doors.
You're like me.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck these kids. Where's the freak off room, right?
Right.
But
that's what I
told, and I even said, 10 years ago, that picture would have been considered an iconic picture. But 10 years later, according to my 9-year-old son, the picture looks very sus. Because sus is the word now.
Sus.
Because, but it was a innocent, the unfortunate thing about it, any picture that anybody has with Diddy, it's going to be considered you was a part of the freak off. I don't know that side of Diddy, but that day, that night, particularly, was a good time. I had a good time. And that's so if you pop it up. And my son was like, Daddy, you took a picture with the diddler. This is what my son said. And me and him go back and forth. We roast each other. He said, you took a picture with the diddler. That's sus, Dad. I was like, wait a minute, you got a picture in his lap. That's way more sus because he was holding my son said, you got to delete that picture.
Nah, you should make T-shirts with it.
But the thing about it, that's funny. I wouldn't do that. That's funny though. But the thing about it, the picture that I had and the picture that my son had, that's how innocent that day was. It was just like, I was happy to see him, his family. Dave kids was there. Dave kids was hanging out with Diddy's kid. It was fucking dope. And I didn't know anything about the freak world until all this shit came out.
Your Breakfast Club thing is iconic. Like there's a meme of you just falling off your chair laughing. It's like the most. But the slam you put on the guy, you said he looks like he's going to sell cars with Big Pun. Sell cars with Big Pun.
Yeah, you know that. You know.
I was going to ask you this. Can you make a top 10 MC list and leave off Big Pun? Is that possible? I don't think it is. I think if you're really honest with yourself.
I think if you really honest with yourself and you really, really into hip hop like that, you can't. But for people that's like into whatever was popping on their generation,
Stay out.
Whatever's popular in their generation, I don't think they could leave them out. But I don't think no. For somebody of that era, yeah. But anything past that, it could be questionable.
How do you did Chappelle's show and The Wire at the same time?
Yeah.
Was that like a mental gymnastics for you?
It was crazy. That was dope. It was like, I didn't really, because I was a part of both of those shows when they were actually happening. I never knew how crazy it was to be a part of two shows that people are saying probably
Greatest of all time.
the greatest of all time.
Yes.
You know, it was, and not only that, but two different things. One is sketch comedy, one is serious. You know, yeah, I had it popping there. That's when people.
Did you even know I had bread? Something bread?
With bread. Oh, that not
was
you took it. You taking it way back. The Corner.
Oh, okay. But what were you in The Wire?
The Wire, I was Day, Senator Clay Davis' assistant,
Yeah.
Damian Price, Day. On the Corner, like, it's so funny you mentioned that, because a lot of people don't know, if it was no The Corner, it would be no The Wire. Because the Corner was so successful that people wanted more, but you couldn't keep on telling that same story of a family full of addiction and the trials and tribulations, so they had to spin it off. And the crazy thing was The Corner was the first dramatic thing that I had booked. And when I tell you I thought I bombed in that audition, I was in that audition, man, I didn't know what the fuck, I was forgetting my lines. I told the cast director, Jackie Brown Carmen, I was like, I don't want to waste any more of your time, right? She was like, Donnell, let me tell you something. She said, just take your time. She said, God is in the room. You'll be good, right? And she said, God is in the room. And I wanted to say, I'm happy God is in the room, because if Allah was in here with no more Christmas gifts, I would have a problem. Right? God, Allah.
God, I love a callback.
I want God to be here.
So were you reading
But
the
let me tell you something.
yeah.
So she was like, I was like, all right, whatever. So I read my lines, whatever. And I called my managers, like, I was apologizing to everybody that day. You know, I was like, whatever. And then like 3 days later, they say, you booked it. I didn't ask no question. I was like, you sure? You know we look alike. You sure they didn't mean to call Wayne Brady or whoever, right? I was like, send them a picture, make sure they got the right guy. So I was like, what? But you ain't gonna be like, no, I don't deserve
They
it.
heard brother knowledge.
Yeah, they had one about that's funny. So I was like, all right. The first thing I asked David Simon when I got on set, I said, why me? He said, what do you mean? I said, how did y'all pick me? I said, man, I thought I had bombed in the audition. He said, Donna, you know, we like the fact, what we really appreciate is the fact that you threw the lines away. You know, that's called not being prepared for an audition.
Right.
He said, you threw the lines away. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you didn't stick to what was on the paper, because I didn't know what was on the paper. And the reason why, because I wasn't into reading breakdowns or anything. I'm like this. I'm so green. I'm like this. I'm going to read a couple lines. I got this. I just do that, right? And I didn't really connect with the fact that he was a heroin addict. And I think every other actor pushed that more than anything. So I'm sure every other actor went in there was like, yeah, so, man. But they didn't want to see that bread. They wanted to see the guy, who is he on the block, roasting people, talking shit as a friend. That's what they wanted to see. And that's all I had. And that's what got me the role. And crazy, so The Corner got a relationship with David Simon, Alexi Foley, and all the people.
Alexa Fogel?
Alexa Fogel, yeah.
She
And
booked my first thing.
so now The Wire's up, right? I get the role as Day Price. Robert Colesbury, he was one of VP's executive producers there. When I get on set, he said, you know what, Donnell? He said, we were really heavily considering you for the role of Omar. He said, but we thought that you could do more with this character. And if you're a fan of The Wire, you notice the first season, it was all about the towers.
Yeah.
Stringer Bell and all, it was all about the towers. But what happened was the Baltimore Tourism Board complained that every time they produced something in Baltimore, it depicted Baltimore as a drug-ridden, crime-infested city. I'm like, have you ever when last time you did a walkthrough?
You ever been to Baltimore?
Yeah, like, I mean, okay. So
Could we get Cal Ripken in the next
yeah, exactly. So what happened was the Baltimore Tourism Board put so much pressure on HBO and David Simon and them that they had to switch the storyline. So it went from, if you watch the show, if people didn't understand it, it went from the towers to the docks, like that, because they couldn't do that.
Oh, that's why the big switch. That was like a big shock when the next season started. It was like, oh,
it was a shock for me too, because I already knew my character was gonna be dope as shit. The reason why I knew he was gonna be dope, because he had a connection with the streets and he had a connection with politics.
Right.
I got caught with $30,000. They had to give me the money back, and I leave out of the office. You got to answer that. You got to follow money. It's so funny. And even in that scene, when I had to give, when they gave my money back, I usually sometimes just improv and certain shit. Yeah. So I was like, this would be funny. Like when they told me I could leave, I was like, I could go there. It was like, yeah. And then when I walked to the office, I just freestyle. I walked out, I threw the money on my back, and I started singing, some people got to have it. And then I would go to the other cops. I was like, don't let money, almighty dollar. Right? The whole Simon, they died laughing, but it's like, we can't keep that, but it's fucking funny as shit. And that's what my character, he got lost. But David Simon was a fan of mine. Whenever I see him out or whatever, he said, you know what, Donnell did good work on The Wire, but he saved his best work for the Chappelle Show. So he wanted to just kind of show me some love at the end, and he wrote that in for me to come back to
I think that's what makes comics great on a set. We just keep it light. Everybody gets so serious. We just go, we show up, we have a good time, we shoot fish in a barrel, and we bounce.
Yeah, but you're lucky enough, like I will say, certain sets, you know, that shit don't go. Certain sets, it's the writers are anal. They'll fucking like just fucking hate you.
Yeah.
They don't want that. What did it say right here? But then if you're lucky enough, like when I was on a Chappelle show, we always had the blueprint, but at the same time, we always had a situation where just go for it. But so, you know, some sets is like this. They start breathing hard. You add one word, they're like, it doesn't say that.
That makes me nuts.
But did I get to it?
Last question. If you were a fighter, what would your walk-up music be?
My walk-up, God damn, that's a, French Montana. Ain't worried about nothing.
Writing that one down, buddy.
Yeah.
Listen to that on the way home.
Yeah.
I had you down.
Sing it.
I had you down for Shook Ones.
Nah, French Montana ain't worried about nothing. In fact, that was my intro song for a couple of years when I go on stage.
Yeah, the sound guy always comes up to you before you go on stage. What song do you want me to play?
No, like, he don't say it to you. That's the black club. That's the black
highlight
club.
of
White guys don't want music. They want, y'all used to make us feel so bad.
I want
you
my
like music?
Yeah, but they always, now
but
they
you're
always,
a different breed.
They always, thank you. They always come up to you and they're like, what's, like, that's the highlight of that guy's weekend.
You know what I want to give you your flowers about, a lot of people don't know? Is that, like, when you were talking about the era that we came up on, that era was so competitive and so fucking just, and this is what I don't see when I go to comedy clubs now. I don't see people perform like I want to be discovered.
I want to have the set of the night.
I don't see people perform like, oh my God, that producer might be in here.
Right.
Oh my God, I want to blow this guy out there. When you used to go up there, it was you, Red Johnny, and I know the crew. It was you.
Red Johnny and the Round Guy.
Boston Comedy Club.
Yeah.
It was like lights out when that crew came. It was over. They hit that flashlight shit and everything. It was like, what you gonna do after that? But it'll probably never go back to that. But I remember, and at that time, I wasn't passing any of those clubs. When you guys was kicking like that, I was a spectator. I was there because Tony would drag me there and be like,
Tony be sleeping in the back.
Yeah, he'd be sleeping in the back. And I would be like, all right.
sleeping.
He was like, you got to come to these clubs. You know, you got to get past these clubs. And I used to be like, and I used to always be like this, man, one day I'm going to hit those stages like that. So as much as you say what you say about me, I appreciate what you've done to comedy and how you've navigated through this business for so many years.
Thank you, my man. I've wanted you from the moment we restarted the podcast. Donnell Rawlings, go see him at the Irvine Improv. Go see him wherever. You're never going to have a better time than Donnell Rawlings. And ask him about the real shit that happened at the Diddy party.
Shut the fuck up.
Thanks, Donnell.
All right.
Jay Mohr's my uncle.